walk in his shoes. What a life. Our next speaker is one of Jeff's best friends, Mike Kristoff. He's now going to come up and speak about his friendship and memories with Jeff.
Okay, I could not look at those pictures. So I have no idea what you all saw, because I had to turn away because I would lose it. And then I mistakenly turned away and looked at the rest of you crying. So that was my safe spot. The top of the California pole. That's what I was staring at for this whole slideshow. Anyway, I want to echo what Charlie said about Jeff being blown away by seeing everybody here. But I also want to say he'd be totally freaked out. Because early on in our friendship, I was talking to Jeff and I said, I love to bring people together from different parts of my life and have them meet each other. And he said, oh, you hate that. Because you could be different people around different people. And he loved doing that and navigating different people. But it would be like a chemistry experiment on bad if we tried to bring them together. So he would be running and hiding, I think. He was scared at this point because he just liked to navigate differently with different people. And when I first was getting to know him, and I became friends with him, good friends starting 2004, 2005, I saw him as being kind of a chameleon, and I thought, like, maybe this guy doesn't really have a sense of self because he could so easily be around and reflect different people. But I quickly became to understand this person had a very, very deep sense of self. And you may hear me repeat deep many times. One of the things I quickly saw in him is a very, very strong soul. It was very much a challenge for him to know how to navigate life, not only to get thrills, but to know how to handle it and hold himself up in it. And I have so many stories I've written down, but I'm not going to be able to tell many of them because of time, and there's so much to tell. But I would be concerned about him losing his way on the trail because he would be way ahead of everybody else. And he would figure out the trickiest spots where many of us got lost who were experienced hikers in the beginning. He also had such a deep skepticism. He was able to read through so much stuff. And let me see if I can tell the story briefly, but there was one point where some friends had this rugby book of French athletes that were players. And we were all looking at it, and everybody was just so thinking, wow, they're so good looking and so amazing that these rugby players are able to be in this homoerotic poses and be so comfortable with themselves. Wow, this French team is amazing. And Jeff said, they're all models. No, they're not all models. Jeff turned to the cover and said, look, French rugby team and their friends. He was able to do it, and I would turn to him often to be able to see through read through the lines, because he was very, very street smart. And he was someone who learned by doing and observing. Our good friend Kevin, he went skiing with him. I was there too, but not skiing with them. He was doing all the black diamonds. Jeff went up with him to do all the black diamonds. After 15 years of not skiing at all, he just went up there, and Kevin was pretty impressed that he could keep up with him, no problem. And when I was talking to Jeff afterwards, he said, yeah, all I did is I looked at his posture, I looked at his shoes, and he just keyed into how Kevin moved. And that was the thing with Jeff. You did learn by observing. And he didn't want to mentor anyone because that's not how he did things. You figured it out for yourself. In some ways, Jeff was very traditionally a macho guy, but with a very, again, I'm going to use the word, deep sense of soul. So, and he needed excitement, as people alluded to. He told me he would eventually get bored of everything. And he gave me the warning that eventually hiking he'd get bored with, and sure enough, he did. I loved doing the same trails over and over again, going to the same places, feeling out one with it, and Jeff was like, it's not new. He needed something new. And as Charlie said, anticipation of the event was just as important of the event. And often we had plans to do something, and I would hear him go, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. And he'd go back and forth, and then he'd say, I'm not feeling it. And finally, we would do it, and he would always have the best time. And as many of you probably have known, which hasn't brought up yet, Jeff had a very reckless streak in him. And I could share 20 stories, no problem, of the situations that Jeff has put himself into. But the one that I think is key and captures it the most, and this is before I knew him, that he told me about. He was in Griffith Park by himself. He climbed up a hill and he slipped backwards, put his arm behind him, and totally dislocated his shoulder. He was by himself, the shoulder was sticking out, he tried to put it in, he was in tremendous pain, but he just kept walking and it snapped back in, tremendous pain, just hiked down, drove home, and then went to bed. And I'm like, did you see a doctor? No, why would you go see a doctor? Years later, what?
It was a manual car.
Yes. Oh, and it was a manual car probably too. Yes. And years later, he went to see the doctor, and they said, you have serious scar tissue there. But he shared that spirit with a lot of our friends in the hiking group too. And that was the thing with Jeff too, that because he kind of had this expectation of himself to find his way through situations and really navigate things, he was, as people are aware, a very deeply emotional person, but he never let that get in the way of working through his issues in life. And honestly, he didn't have patience for people who didn't have that reserve within them. So he would disappear on you a couple times, many times on me, because I did not quite have the stamina he did. And there would be times I'd be around him and he'd be one big eye roll as I did. However, I have to say, and I'm sure many of you may have felt that too, I would have to say that he was always intensely there for people. And not only was he intensely there for them, he knew how to key into them. I'm using key for some reason. I do not know where that's coming from. But he really knew how to tune into what they really, really needed. And again, 20 million different examples I can have of it. But the most recent one is our good friends Tom and Alan lost their house in the fire. And everybody was kind of trying to think about what can they do for him. And there was really nothing you could do for them. However, Jeff contacted them, and he figured out what they needed right away, which was they had all the worldly possessions in their car, as much as that they could save from their house. And Jeff says, I have storage space. You can drop it off with me. He also knew they had a cat, and they would need a place to put her as they're moving around and go on. I'm going to have to look above all of you because I cannot deal with the tears. So that's why I'm not making eye contact. Okay. So he took the cat in when they went to Santa Fe to see family. And I saw that time and time again, that even though there were times he would do this to you, and I got it a lot, he really knew how to be there for people in ways that really needed it, and maybe they didn't even know they needed it. And then in 2014, he discovered CrossFit. How many people are here from his CrossFit group? Wow, a lot of people out in the back. Okay. I have to say, I was kind of resentful because he left it, my buddy abandoned me, he was bored with it, and all of a sudden he found CrossFit and he became a walking infomercial. My friend, the skeptic, the person who read and saw through everything, could not shut up and kept taking everything at verbatim oh boy, if I keep drinking water, the pounds just keep coming on. Talking about all these routines named after Army veterans that he was doing ad nauseum, and he was so into it. No skepticism. And this was a perfect storm. Okay, CrossFit people, I don't mean to offend you, but you're probably aware that you have a reputation of people pushing themselves too hard and getting injuries. Well, I knew this was the perfect storm for Jeff. Sure enough, the herniated disc, the broken fingers, shin splits, bars hitting him in the wrong places, but he loved it. And that was the thing with Jeff. He would, it wasn't like he liked pain, he didn't. He hated it, but the thrill of pursuing something was so important to him that the pain was not going to stop him. And if he had a goal and he's trying to get something, he was going to still push himself. So it was worth it for him. And it was the first time I heard him say, I think I'm going to do CrossFit forever. So I wanted him to stay with me in hiking, but he found you guys. It made a major difference in his life. So, and then all this came to pass this past year. I spent a lot of time with him when he got cancer, and he said his whole life prepared him for this. It's not like he liked having cancer, but he said he knew how to deal with all the different medications, all the different things that it provided him to do, all the loss of what he used to be able to do, but now he was limited to. He can deal with it emotionally. And he said it's the first time, because of the steroids, he had ever felt paranoia. He never knew what that emotion was. And all of a sudden he's driving down the highway and he would hear sirens behind him. And he's like, oh my God, they're after me. Then he goes, as soon as I could identify that and know that, I'm able to move on. And that's how he was able to do it. It wasn't easy, and he had a lot of sadness. I'd have to say I saw him as a glorious soldier. I'm a guy in that way, but a lot of our women friends saw him at the Getty and they go, oh, Jeff looks so, so sad. And I'm like, oh, Jeff's not sad. He knows how to do it. And I asked him, and he goes, yeah, it is really sad. It is really hard, but the women were able to tune into that. And I'm sure there were guys who did too, but they're the women are the ones who talk to me. So I just wanted to leave with his impact on me. Before I met Jeff, I was kind of on the path of trying not to let my emotions get in the way of me. And just like Kevin, that he observed Kevin's theme, I have learned to, and here I gotta watch it because I might get the emotions in the way here, but I learned by observing Jeff. I learned how to reduce the noise in my head, and a quick story I can share with that is 3 years ago I was going to meet our friend Larry at the Great Walk of LA, and as usual I'm in the subway, I'm not sure where I'm going to come out, on a street corner. It wasn't a big deal. I'm thinking I got to put on Waze and that can be confusing. And then I just happened to look across and see someone on the subway, and I was able to pay attention and go, they're probably going to the Great Walk. And I'm like, I'm going to do what Jeff does. I'm just going to follow them. And sure enough, quiet the noise in my head, I followed them out to the street corner. And then just recently, a couple months ago, Jeff did give me the biggest compliment. He said, yes, the noise has gotten a lot less in your head. I can see that. And so the thing I want to leave with everybody here, this is all very hard for us, losing someone like Jeff. But think of what he went through for his cancer. Think of what he did to manage his life, to always push through and not let the noise get intense. A deeply emotional guy who always could put things in perspective. We could follow his example in dealing with the grief that we are feeling right now in moving on with our lives without him. And he'll still be in our heads. So thank you all for being here, and I'm glad Jeff wasn't here to see this.
Since there's a lot of people that didn't get the opportunity to speak about Jeff and their memories with him, We'd like to invite anyone that wants to come up to say anything about him. You're more than welcome to take the mic. However, we'd like to say, just be mindful of the time, because we could literally be here for a week. So if anyone would like to come up and say how they knew him or a memory of him that they would like to share, we invite you to come up. Anybody?
So, looking around the room and all these pictures of Jeff, struck by that beautiful big smile of his. But what's also lacking are those gigantic arms. You know, every selfie, there's Jeff. I could never do it. But my fondest memory of his big arms was we were at West Hollywood for celebrating gay marriage passing. And we've had a couple of drinks, we're at a bar, and he looks at this big old gay pride flag and says, I like that. I might have egged him on a little, and next thing I know, giant arms. And now he's got this big gay pride flag to put in his big old pride box at home. And you kind of think about it, most people when they swipe something, they're going to run out the door. Not Jeff, it's right here, let's have another drink. And he enjoyed it. And then march down the street, waving the pride flag. The best thing about those big arms, they could just give you the best hug whenever you needed a hug and pull you into that chest. And that's what I miss most about my friend Jeff.
I should say something. Oh, go ahead. Are you sure? Go ahead.
This is short. Might want to flagpole.
I don't have to speak now, so I'm fine.
The exquisite privilege of knowing Jeff in college. We met at a perfect pace event with a hiking club that he loved to participate in. And the love for the outdoors and for nature is what drew us together. And we developed kind of an affinity for each other. And I was 19 at the time. We had just turned 40, but somehow we were the same age. It was a brief relationship, just a year and a half of sorts. But during that time, we had amazing experiences together, hiking with a whole bunch of folks who were here. He showed me how to appreciate California wilderness, which is very different than my native Northwest roots. I think the thing that Jeff gave me was, as kind of an insecure young person at that time, a sense of self that was really deep. He could love in a really deep way, and as has been said by many folks, showed me over the years as we've kept in touch that capacity I have in myself. So appreciate the opportunity to share that.
Hi. A lot of you people I don't know, but I've known Jeff since as long as I can remember. We grew up together. He's my brother. I moved to Hawaii right after high school, and I didn't keep in touch with him. But Facebook brought us back together, and the more I look at my life,